All right, so you know how we're always talking about EMFs and like how they might be affecting us?
Right.
Well, guess what? A bunch of you have been asking about our pets.
Oh, yeah.
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 Like, could all this tech be messing with our furry friends too?
Interesting.
So that's what we're diving into today.
Sounds good.
We found this article called, Is Your Pet Struggling with EMF Overload?
Hmm.
And honestly,
Oops.
even I was kind of surprised by some of this
But
stuff.
hooray.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
so I'm intrigued.
The first thing that jumped out at me was this idea that, like,
Uh,
our pets are basically living in this constant sea of EMFs. I think about it.
right.
Wi-Fi, phones, laptops, everything.
It's everywhere.
But hold on a sec.
Sure.
For anyone who's like, wait, what are EMFs again?
Okay, so EMFs,
Yeah.
or electromagnetic fields,
Yeah.
they're basically just energy waves
Okay.
given off by anything electronic.
I see.
So you've got radio waves, microwaves, X-rays even. They're all on this spectrum
Right.
of electromagnetic radiation. But the ones we're worried about with our gadgets,
Yeah.
those are what are called non-ionizing.
Gotcha.
And the question is,
Right.
how much exposure is too much,
Okay. So the article lists all these potential symptoms in pets,
right? Like what?
like fatigue, sleep problems, even skin irritations, digestive issues. Like, it's a whole thing.
Hmm.
So is there any truth to this, or is it just hype?
Well, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some studies they mention have shown that EMF exposure can mess with melatonin production in dogs,
Oh, wow.
which is like their sleep hormone. So, maybe that 3 a.m. barking spree
Right.
isn't just Fido being stubborn.
So you're saying it could be EMFs?
Maybe. But it's important to remember that just because things happen together doesn't
Yeah.
mean one causes the other.
Okay, that makes sense. But honestly, this whole thing makes me a little skeptical. I mean, couldn't you argue that all this tech is just like part of modern life now?
That's a good point. It is. But the article brings up this idea of electromagnetic stress.
Right. And they even have a solution. Remember,
What's that?
the EMF defense pendant?
Oh, right.
You clip it on your pet's collar and poof,
Oh,
instant EMF shield. They claim it does everything from boosting immunity to calming anxiety. Pretty impressive.
electromagnetic stress is kind of a buzzword, right?
Okay.
Some people say it's how EMFs disrupt our natural bioelectricity.
Hmm.
But the science behind all that is still pretty murky. And while the article talks about the pendant,
Yeah.
I think it's always good to be a little skeptical about these kinds of claims.
Okay, so you're saying be skeptical.
Right.
But the article makes this pendant sound pretty convincing. How do we know
Yeah.
where the line is between being cautious and being, overly worried?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I
Yeah.
think ultimately it comes down to doing your own research,
Okay.
looking at the evidence,
Yeah,
and then deciding what makes sense for your pet.
that makes sense. So if we're not just slapping on a pendant,
Right.
then what does the article actually suggest for creating a healthier EMF environment at home?
That's where things get interesting. They talk about being mindful of your pet's exposure.
Okay.
So, like, maybe your cat loves sleeping next to the router. Could you move their bed? Or how about creating some device-free zones in your house?
Ooh, like a little tech-free sanctuary.
Exactly.
This is where I started thinking, like, wait, could I actually be doing something
Yeah,
to make my cat's life better in this whole EMF thing?
I think so. It's all about taking small steps and paying attention.
Hmm.
The article really stresses observing your pet's behavior.
Okay.
Are they showing any of those symptoms we talked about? Could EMFs be a factor?
So it's like a little detective work.
Kind of.
So what's the bottom line for our listeners?
I think the takeaway here
Yeah.
is if EMFs could be impacting our pets, and that's still a big if,
Right.
then what can we do to create a more balanced environment for them?
I love that. It's about empowering pet owners to make informed choices.
Exactly.
If nothing else, this whole deep dive has made me way more aware of my own tech habits
Right.
and how they might be affecting my furry friend.
Right.
It's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely.